Did you know that people who have a certain philosophy will die 41 years sooner than others who didn't? That's what psychologist Hans-Ulrich Eisnig found, and he was the most frequently cited doctor in all of peer-reviewed medical journals when he was alive. But isn't philosophy just some useless topic studied by unemployable people who like to try and sound smart? Well, maybe, but let's separate it out into applied philosophy, meaning when it's actually useful in people's lives. Because there have been people with stage 4 cancer who have only wildly changed their philosophies, and within days, their cancer melts away. And that's been verified by countless doctors as well. How's that possible? Dr. Kelly A. Turner confirmed when she did a deep dive study on all the people who were seemingly randomly cured of cancer via spontaneous remission. She found that it was neither random nor spontaneous. She correlated 6 philosophical factors to rapid, medical, and unexplainable disappearances of cancer. And if you just adjust one aspect of your philosophy, that changes the probability of getting or not getting a heart attack by 400%. Holding certain philosophies can totally undo a perfect exercise and diet regimen, or it can do the opposite and prevent illness and disease with a terrible diet and no exercise. Philosophy is the largest correlate to health. And some people think philosophy is a lame thing to study or downright career suicide to major in, but the application of the right philosophy can dominate and override all other factors directly correlated with your life, including health, quality of relationships, happiness, and how much money you make. So maybe it's not useless after all. It just needs to be approached, explained, and correlated more scientifically. So let's do that now. And this is definitely one of the most fun, delicious, exciting, and dastardly interesting topics of discussion of all time. So what is a philosophy? A philosophy is sort of like the lenses of your glasses. There is objective reality out there with light bouncing off it and headed towards you, but right before it reaches your eyeballs, it gets tinted and distorted by whatever glasses you have on. Some prescriptive glasses and tints will serve you better than others. And this isn't just some esoteric better. It's scientifically measurable, recordable, documentable, real life, knock on wood, reality better. But I wonder if we can sort of hack this philosophy thing by going about it backwards, seeing the outputs and results we want, and then correlating what the inputs were. Because I don't really care for pontificating theories by academics. I want to look at the real world results. I want to look at the sweetest fruits and then go back and see what philosophical seeds were planted. Luckily, successful people leave all kinds of clues. There are millions of interviews, books, and podcasts where you can correlate these philosophical seeds with the outcomes. But how on earth do you measure a philosophy? Apostel Framework. There's a really interesting model called the Apostel Framework. This has been often adapted into modern psychology as the 6 dimensions of worldview. It was developed in the 1990s by a consortium of philosophers led by Leo Apostel that mapped out the exact ways that human beings process reality, construct their identity, and make choices. And that's just a fancy way of saying they figured out how to measure a philosophy. Our philosophies comprise 6 fundamental spectrums. Where we are on each of these spectrums dictates our health, wealth, behavior, resilience to disease, relationships, how we treat others and how others treat us, and our overall success in life. Just like whatever we tune to in a radio, if we tune to classical, we're going to hear classical. So it's not difficult to understand. And here are the 6 spectrums. Ontology, Teleology, Epistemology, locus of control, Anthropology and identity, and Axiology and morality. So we have these 6 fancy spectra here. Let's go over each of them. The first one is ontology, which is the study and nature of existence. On one side, we have the mechanistic and material, and on the other side, we have the angelic and spiritual. At this very end of the spectrum, people believe that everything is physical. If it can't be numerically measured, it doesn't exist. Passion, joy, love, those are just chemical reactions. Don't these people sound fun? These people discount and make fun of studies that deal with human behavior, societies, institutions, and culture, like psychology, philosophy, sociology, political science, and economics. They pejoratively call these the soft sciences. Philosophies that practice this are called mechanistic, materialism, and reductionism. On the other end of the spectrum is mental or metaphysical, meaning the world out there is thought-like in essence, but nonetheless external to our individual minds. Philosophies that practice this are called monism, pantheism, panpsychism, and analytic idealism. Second, teleology is how people view the purpose of your life correlated to whether you believe it is destined by something or someone else, or on the other side of the spectrum, if you personally create it. So on this side of the spectrum is the legacy scientific community that has mechanism, materialism, and reductionism as its foundation. And also the people who believe that everything is destiny, or the attitude of whatever God wants for me. Those people belong here. It's sort of an external locus of purpose, where things are set by mechanical things or a higher power. People that hold this view are sort of resigned to powerlessness because free will doesn't exist here. They'll look for signs or chemistry or karma or astrology. The funniest part to me is that the hardcore scientific materialists are the exact same category as the karma astrology people. People on the other end of the spectrum believe they create their purpose on earth. They believe in absolute free will. They do not believe that they are lumbering robots, as Richard Dawkins said. They participate in an active process of discovery and creation on this earth. These people don't follow the road, they make it. The third is epistemology, which is the nature of truth and knowledge. On one side, we have the subjective and intuitive, and the other side is objective and empirical. To help explain this, when people are looking for evidence for the reason of why they do things, there are two main types. Accuracy-motivated reasoning is where people just seek truth and follow it. And then there are identity-motivated reasoning, where people do whatever they want and only seek evidence that they are right. So when a politician explains their reasoning, they claim to have my own truth about why a program should work. They use identity-motivated reasoning because they identify as helpful, good people, and because of that, the program will work. An engineer or inventor uses accuracy-motivated reasoning, meaning, what's the truth? Did the prototype work or not? Inventors and engineers don't suffer at work from cognitive dissonance like politicians do because they don't take it personally, hide, or cover up the evidence they were wrong. They view all information as truth that'll help them improve. So on this end of the spectrum, you have accuracy-motivated reasoning people who just seek objective truth. They don't care if it hurts them or destroys their whole belief system. They just identify as people who want truth. And the other side says there is no objective truth, just what feels true to them. Fourth is agency and locus of control. This is how much people believe outside forces control their lives. The slight majority group is on this end of the scale, which is estimated to be about 50 to 60% of the population. They have what's classified as an external locus of control. They blame external factors for their problems, thus they aren't usually proactive in their life or health, and they have a negative outlook on life. Victimhood abounds on this side of the scale. The second smaller group on this end of the scale is estimated to be about 40 to 50% of the population. These people have what's classified as an internal locus of control, meaning they simply feel like they have personal control over their outcomes. Fifth, anthropology and identity. On this side is essentialism, and these people really identify and make all their life choices based on their demographic information. Their race, their gender, their sexual orientation, country of origin, geographical nearby sports teams, their age, etc. have everything to do with who they are and how they interact with this world. And obviously, the transcendent ones on the other side of the scale are the exact opposite. Their race, religion, gender, sexual preference have nothing to do with who they are as a person inside. And lastly, sixth, we have axiology and morality. On this side, we have universal or objective, and on the other side, we have relational or utilitarian. But what on earth do these two mean? The best way to explain it is a lie test. So on this side, a pure universalist's absolute rule is, do not lie. They tell the truth, even if it means innocent people die. If they lie, that would violate their moral code. So if a Nazi is asking, where are you hiding the Jewish children, with no hesitation, they tell the truth and guide them to the hiding place. Yeah. You can see where pure objectivism kind of loses its humanity. On the other side, a pure utilitarian doesn't even hesitate. They lie immediately as it serves them personally. A pure utilitarian believes that the end justifies the means. However, the problem is they feel morally justified in engaging in canceling, shaming, publicly humiliating, helping to rig elections, destroy someone's livelihood, or even killing another person they disagree with, because the lie has utility and it serves them personally. Now, if someone was in the middle, we have a sort of enlightened synthesis. A synthesized mind realizes that while do not lie is a good and moral, proper foundational baseline, the higher moral law is do not assist evil. So they sort of rationalize the lie. The moral math is simple. If a lie produces less harm than the deaths of innocent people, then the lie becomes a morally good act. All right, let's make a sort of spectrum chart here. Now, obviously, there are infinite number of options we can move on this sliding scale, and we can spend decades correlating these inputs with the outcomes. But for the sake of brevity, let's just pick 5 options for these dimensions. Both extremes, 1 on the left, 5 on the right, 3 in the middle, and 2 and 4 in between the two extremes. Perfect, that'll work. Now let's make a chart with the inputs or seeds on one side and the outputs or fruits on the other. Perfect. Well, let's dive right in and do the extremes and put the sweetest and best fruits first. We want to be the absolute happiest. We want to be the healthiest, impervious to disease and mental illness. We want spontaneous remissions to happen to incurable diseases. We want to be the wealthiest. We want the best relationships as our sweet fruits. We want a life of rich in purpose and meaning. We want to absolutely love life and be true to ourselves and fearlessly express our true essence. That looks amazing. So let's call this group the high enlightenment, and the other side, I couldn't really find a word besides low enlightenment. Neurotic is close, but it's not quite right. Turns out Friedrich Nietzsche ran into the same problem in German, trying to find the opposite of the word enlightenment. He used the word in French, ressentiment, which isn't French for resentment. It's a deeper, more complex form of resentment that adds hostility and frustration directed at an external source perceived as the cause of one's feelings of inferiority. Good enough for me. But how do they get there? What inputs or seeds were planted in order to get those outputs or fruits? To have the highest and sweet fruits, it kind of makes sense that they are sort of on the high end of the scales. Ontologically, they are all the way maxed on this side of the scale with people that believe that consciousness is the basis of what we agree to call reality, which is a representation construction within a universal consciousness, meaning that everything is thought. To echo what the Nobel Prize winner Frank Wilczek said, there is no matter or energy, just conscious information. These people really believe it's all in the mind, not the brain. Next is teleologically. They are identically at level 5. These people believe in absolute free will, that we 100% create our own reality with our minds, and thus everything that comes to our lives we rendezvoused with because we harmonized it with our thoughts. Again, people who think their lives are all up to destiny, like the majority of materialistic scientists, are on the opposite end of the spectrum. Next is epistemologically, these are out of 5 again. So these people believe there is objective truth out there and seek to find it. They identify as truth seekers, not ego strokers. They don't just seek evidence they are right. In fact, they are overjoyed when they find out they are wrong, because they celebrate in finding the truth. They don't take it personally about having been previously misinformed. Everyone on the planet experiences that. They just don't let it affect their view of self, because they view themselves as lovers of truth first and foremost. They can easily and freely admit and see when they got something wrong or were duped. Locus of control. Of course, they are at 5 again. These people believe that they have an absolute internal locus of control. They view that, in essence, anything and everything that comes into their life, both the good and bad, wanted and unwanted, they rendezvoused with because they harmonized with it in some way via their own thoughts. When something they want comes into their life, they say, I created that. When something unwanted comes into their life, they say, I created that. 100% metaphysical responsibility. These people believe there is no universe-based injustice, as everyone gets what they are in harmony with, wanted or not, intended or not. With their foundational knowledge, they don't support any philosophy or program that attempts to circumvent the laws of the universe. For example, they know that any government program that tries to redistribute wealth can never be sustained because money is the fruit of a seed that was planted by that person. Identically, you can't redistribute health. If someone said, you know what, I've been healthy for a real long time, I'd like to give some of my health to someone who is sick. It doesn't work like that. But if the government could tax your health, it would try. Both are fruits of seeds that the individual planted, which explains perfectly why the trillions of dollars given to the poor have never improved their lives in any long-term material sustainable way, and never can. The people need to be taught how to plant different seeds. They need a different philosophy. 5th, demographic identity. These people are maxed out again to a 5. This means these people don't associate their demographic information in any way with who they are. They don't view their gender, race, sexual identity, or preferences have anything to do with them as a point of consciousness in this universe. They never talk about it. They never bring it up. It's the furthest thing from their mind and identity. And lastly, we have axiology and morality. These people take the enlightened synthesis at a 3 in the middle, where telling the truth is cross-checked with not supporting evil. Well, wow, that is quite an extreme views. Consciousness is the basis of reality. We're all one. Absolute free will. Objective truth exists. A complete, absolute internal locus of control. We create our own reality in essence. A view that transcends all demographics. They don't try and teach others except by example because they know words don't teach, only experiences does. These people are unoffendable, comically so. They have no triggers. You can try and offend them, but just goes right past them. These people are insatiably curious, always reading, always talking about ideas. These people never join in fights or protests against things because they know that fighting against unwanted only makes the unwanted grow bigger and destroys their health and well-being. They never fight against perceived evil or anyone who is fighting against them. They always put all their effort into the solution. They don't let past or current events in their life define them forevermore. They are just indicators of fruits of the thoughts they were thinking. When trauma happens, they grow from it. It's called post-traumatic growth. So while many people don't love every single aspect of their philosophical viewpoint, and I'm one of them, you can't really argue that the fruits are quite positive and sweet. But to be honest, these are pretty rare people. Generally, it seems that these people have either had a powerful, life-changing near-death experience, or they've experienced some sort of deep psychedelic experience that have helped them get there. I'm sure there have been some saints or yogis as well. But can normal people ever expect to get to this level? Well, maybe, and that's another fun topic to talk about, which brings us to the second group that looks kind of like this: high enlightenment and little ressentiment. Now, I think this might actually be the most attainable for normal people. Even though it's difficult to adopt and embody all of the viewpoints with the highest enlightenment and no ressentiment people, I think it's worth pondering about, talking about, studying, and striving just for the fruits alone. Now, I get it that ontologically, I think it's hard that this seemingly very physical world is just conscious projections of thought. In teleology, I think it's hard to think we have 100% free will and we create our own reality through thought. Epistemologically, we'd really like to have at least a couple subjects we can ignore the truth and have a few of our own personal own truths, because blame sure does feel better than guilt, and an absolute locus of control in essence. But it seems like my work and personal relationships and politicians and others are influencing my life. It's sure easier to blame outside forces other than myself here too. Regarding our demographic identity, how on earth can anyone totally not notice one's demographic information when that's all we see? Sure, people who have had an NDE or intense psychedelic trip and left their body and saw this time-space reality from a higher plane can much more easily adopt a transcendent view of their body, gender, age, sexual orientation, etc., and view it as not having anything to do with who they are as a conscious point of light in this universe. We can certainly study and lean towards that, but I can see how it's hard. And lastly, let's keep axiology and morality at a 3. We can certainly do that. It's not terribly hard to cross-check telling the truth versus supporting evil. Now, this way we can get most of the sweetest fruits while we strive and learn for more. Middle enlightenment, middle ressentiment. This middle group is obviously all over the map. This is probably where the majority of the population is. Mixed inputs, mixed outputs, but we don't want to be average, so let's just move down to the last group. We'll skip the fourth group as it's essentially a toned-down version of it. So this last group, let's call it the lowest enlightenment and highest ressentiment. Move the dials like this, and let's look at the fruits. These people are constantly sick or in pain. They're depressed. They're angry. Nobody wants to be in a long-term committed relationship with them. They don't have any real-life friends. They're always broke and poor. Steady unemployment is extremely difficult or impossible for them. These are the people that Dr. Eisnick found who die 41 years sooner than others just because of this philosophical stance. Terminal illnesses catch up real quick, and mystery illness is an absolute hallmark. No doctor around the world can ever figure it out, so it's an endless, expensive stream of whack-a-mole problems. These people are very difficult, if not impossible, to cure. They have pathological levels of mental illness, narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, dependent personality disorder. Their cognitive dissonance is so severe that they actually want to harm others who make them feel bad. When trauma happens, it sinks them. Post-traumatic stress, it becomes who they are. They have full-blown martyr complex. And they talk about their demographic data all the time. It's kind of a cornerstone of their life and philosophy as why their life isn't going their way. Some even go to more extremes and seek to change their demographics because they view it as highly correlate with who they are inside. These are the people who organize protests, pickets, try and cancel people they disagree with, rig elections, and they want to kill the high and highest enlightenment. They think everyone should eat the rich. They're not really working or serving their fellow mankind. They just think the rich should give them their money. And these people get offended so much, they will get offended for and behalf of somebody else, like with cultural appropriation. And they will say, well, those facts aren't my truth. They will militantly teach victimhood, meaning if someone doesn't agree that they are being victimized by the majority, they will tell them that they are wrong. It's pseudo-intellectual, pseudo-virtue, faux spirituality, faux moral superiority complex, and virtue signaling is their game. Let's check out the seeds or inputs. Ontologically, these people roll their eyes when anyone starts talking about consciousness. The physical world is the only thing that's real. Teleologically, these people believe nobody has free will. As Richard Dawkins says, we are just lumbering robots. We can only make a few choices, but for the most part, free will is mostly an illusion, and there is nothing much we can do to change our lives here. Everything is set in the stars, the chemicals, and the horoscopes. Epistemologically, these people believe that, besides some of the hard sciences, there really isn't objective truth out there. They think everyone gets to have their own truth. They don't seek truth and are angry when they find out they're wrong. They'll just put their head in the sand. Anyone or any facts that disagree with them must be lying somehow. They are never wrong. They not only want to cancel those who inform them about facts, but they also want to kill them because the truth relayed to them makes them feel uncomfortable. Locus of control. These people have an absolute external locus of control. They believe their life isn't going well because of outside forces. Their bosses, the politicians, the millionaires, other religions, them. Absolute victim mentality. Everyone is against them. They not only hate it when someone talks about having an internal locus of control, but they will also call it victim blaming. Demographic identity. These people associate so much with every aspect of their demographic information, mixed with their other philosophical viewpoints that something is wrong in their life. They associate it with something must be wrong with their demographic identity. If something isn't going right in their life, and their demographics are a cornerstone of who they think they are, they will logically attempt to change their demographics in an attempt to fix that yucky feeling they have inside. They attempt the change, but it never works. And all attempts just amplify into more problems. And lastly, axiology and morality are full-blown relational utilitarian, meaning if it's useful for them, they will utilize lying, cheating, stealing, canceling, and killing anyone they disagree with or makes them feel cognitive dissonance when they are proven wrong. This feeling is so strong that they think their truth is true for them. They only seek evidence they are right. They get so embarrassed and so upset and so furious when anyone points out they are wrong, they always want to kill them. And they will celebrate the deaths of people whom they disagree. If someone wholeheartedly compliments them, they will take it as an insult. They won't ever sit down and deep dive into complex subjects and read. They are already right about everything. Their primary source of information is short-form videos in their echo chamber groups. They don't understand that when you attack someone else's position, it only cements them in the opposition even more. They think fighting against the unwanted is the only way to get rid of unwanted. When people disagree with their philosophical viewpoints and they can't refute logic or facts, they will eagerly try to commit acts of violence, including murder, in attempts to silence them. And they will say, those facts aren't my truth. The problem with my truth in society is twofold. One, all the people who believe in objective truth will leave because they don't like being ignored and dismissed when they are trying to save the ship from going down. And then by the time the idea fails, when the ship does go down, it's catastrophic and unrecoverable. This is a problem with politics. Politicians can pontificate endlessly on how programs should work, and it's the kind thing to do, but they never run out of other people's money to spend. If their programs had a real fair market shake or people got a vote on it, their programs would never succeed and they'd have to move on to finding something that works in real life, like everybody else does. And obviously there are infinite places on this spectrum for not only everybody, but every aspect of your life. You can set your dials to amazing personal romantic relationships, but a lower setting when dealing with your parents. But nonetheless, I find this whole topic dastardly interesting. And the best part is, we have the absolute freedom to choose which seeds, or inputs, we choose to tend to. But yes, that's where our freedom ends. We don't get to choose the fruits. They are affixed to the seed without exception. If you really love kittens but hate cats, well, I'm sorry, there's nothing you can do. If you get a kitten, you're going to eventually end up with a cat. And they will reply with, well, those facts about how kittens turn into cats aren't my truth. Oh my. A lot of people want to have an external locus of control and a victim mentality for the aforementioned fact that it sure feels a lot better to blame others than feel guilty. And they can choose that, and that's just fine. However, they don't have a choice but to deal with being sick and broke all the time with no friends. No one who incessantly complains all the time has job offers or romantic partners lining up to be with them. However, just like with the kitten, it's not instantaneous, so they have the freedom and power to start planting new seeds whenever they want. Now others may say, well, I don't like it to be that way. I want to get a kitten and it doesn't grow up to be a cat. I think I'll picket about it. I'll glue myself to the freeway. I'll deface masterpieces of art. I'll raise awareness. I'll be so loud and annoying that so many people will get on my side and they'll have to change it so that I'll keep my kitty a kitten forever. It just doesn't work like that. But no amount of picketing cats is ever going to change what happens to kittens. In other words, if you want sweeter fruits, you have to plant sweeter seeds. Conclusion. So those are the facts. There is your life hack. We've successfully scientifically correlated philosophical seeds to real-world fruits, so we can figure out how to plant and tend to the seeds for the sweet fruit we want later. Now, you really may want some sweet fruits, but don't like the seeds. I hear ya. I mean, absolute internal locus of control. I can't blame anyone. I have to claim ultimate responsibility for everything in my life and admit I did this to myself? Impossible. Some people say that they've been a real-life victim and they didn't have a choice. I totally agree. Setting your dials like this means there is a lot of unsatisfying answers. Like, what about little kids? Or why bad things happen to good people? How does all that work? So, this is a philosophy that we have correlated to what I argue are the sweetest fruits of life, healthiest bodies, most delicious relationships, and an abundance of wealth. Might not be what you want, but that's okay too. But no matter how we set these dials, there aren't actually any settings on these scales that have a satisfying answer to those questions. Meaning there isn't any philosophy on Earth that I can find that everyone on the planet agrees that it has satisfying answers to those questions. So this philosophy is no different. For example, let's say you believe in a benevolent supreme being. Wait, why would they allow bad things to happen? That's not satisfying. What if you believe there is a malevolent being just randomly messing with random people? What a jerk, right? Wait, that's not satisfying. What if you don't believe in any supreme being and it's all just random? Well, that's not satisfying. What if you believe in only science and that every action has an equal reaction, but now you can't correlate what actions were taken to permitted that reaction? And there's trillions of disproportionate inputs and outputs. So that's not satisfying. So I wholeheartedly agree that this philosophical setting, just like all philosophical settings, does not have answers that will happily satisfy everyone on the planet. I don't have answers either. Maybe there's some pre-birth intentions and that there are pre-life planning sessions where they wanted to hit the ground running with early contrasting experiences, thus helping them ask sooner and in a stronger way so they could get the answer sooner than others. Or maybe before we came here, we didn't have the value judgments that humans have on this earth about the badness of contrasting experiences. Or maybe they intended to be a great teacher on the subject, and in order to gain the knowledge and have real-world credibility, they had to go through some of these experiences first, which they viewed a small price to pay. Now, personally, I find some of those theories somewhat satisfying, and there's evidence of things like that, but who really knows, right? I don't spend my time definitively arguing about unprovable things. But hey, they do make for very fun date discussion topics. But just because we don't understand or can easily explain all of the exact inner workings of life in this galaxy doesn't mean we still can't benefit from planting and tending to specific seeds to harvest specific fruits. Everyone is free to do whatever they want, which is awesome. But as for me, I want these fruits. So I'm going to do my best to investigate and develop these philosophies, planting these seeds, so I can harvest the fruits. And of course, keep having fantastically delicious, head-scratching fun conversations, trying to figure out the why about the nature of reality. So it's win-win, really. I made these deep dive videos into all of these subjects discussed above. I explain step by step how to plant and tend to these sweet seeds so that you can enjoy the sweet fruits. Links are in the description below. It's best to watch the whole series in order. They are longer form videos, as complex problems, like trying to sort out all of life's problems, can never be solved with short-form videos or memes. It's called The Secrets of the Outliers.